So it's the 20th anniversary of Trivium's Ascendancy. Most people think a band's first album is their real debut, but that's not the case for Trivium. Ascendancy was actually the album that put them on the map, so much so that their vocalist, Matt Heafy, boldly stated that they were going to be the next Metallica. And this wasn't just hype. Their first album had barely reached anybody, especially in the US. But Ascendancy exploded, giving them chart-topping success, touring opportunities, and a sound that would define them. It was a total step up. Tighter riffs, heavier tones, and a band finally hitting their stride. But it wasn't well received by everyone. In this video, we're diving into why Ascendancy feels like Trivium's real debut. We'll cover how the lineup changes, production choices, and songwriting all came together to create a record that not only launched their career, but also became a blueprint for the metalcore scene. Trivium's first album, Ember to Inferno, was a strange debut in that almost no one could hear it. Released in October of 2003, it was on a small German label called Lifeforce Records, and outside of the UK and Australia, it didn't really find a lot of success. Matt Heafy couldn't even find it in Florida, and he suspects it wasn't even released in the United States. So while technically their first full-length album was out, it was nearly impossible to show off how much hard work they poured into it. What Ember to Inferno did was put a few tracks into the hands of Roadrunner.
You wanna run that back?
Into the hands of Roadrunner Records, who saw potential in the young band, but needed a step up before committing to them fully. At that point, Trivium was still a trio, and they were hungry for more. And that hunger sparked real changes within the band. Corey Beaulieu? I can't even say that one. He joined after auditioning for the band because he saw some real potential in them. And then together they started hammering out new material to prove themselves. They recorded demos for The Deceived, Blinding Tears Will Break the Skies, and Like Light to the Flies. They even filmed a professional music video for the last track, and that really impressed the music label. Roadrunner took notice, signed them, and put them on a labeled showcase tour with Machine Head and Chimera. The only problem was their first bassist, Brent Young, had recently quit the band. And that's where Paulo Grailetto entered the picture in summer of 2004. He was fresh off of graduating from high school and really making some waves with his thrash metal band Metal Militia in Miami. With the lineup solidified, Trivium spent August on the road with Machine Head and Chimera, fine-tuning the songs that they were to record in September, so that when they entered Audio Hammer Studios to record their guitars and Morris Sound Studios to record the drums, they were completely ready. And once again, they worked with their producer, Jason Sukoff, who worked with them on their first record to produce this album. And the band got to work on their true breakout, Ascendancy. So the fine-tuning of the tracks and the guitar recording happened at Audio Hammer Studios in Sanford, Florida. Matt was most likely using his Gibson Les Paul. His father had gotten him a full custom Gibson Les Paul in his teenage years, and that was one he was constantly using through touring and recording. But you'll also see in some videos from that era a white Gibson Les Paul as well, so I think it's safe to assume he's using one of these in the studio, or maybe even both of them. For Corey, it's a little bit harder to figure out which guitars he was using in the studio. I know at the time he had a red Jackson DX10D, and in some videos he was using a Jackson King KV2V, but I'm not 100% sure which guitar he used in the studio. Amp-wise for the album, they were definitely using some kind of PV. They've mentioned before that they've used PV on literally every album except for one, and I think the album was their 2019 one, where they used Kempers. They really loved the sound of real live amps in the studio, so it was definitely PV of some kind. I was scrolling through so many videos and photos from that era to see which kind of cabs they used. It looks like it was maybe a Marshall loaded with V30s, because that was all the craze at the time. So I think it's safe to say it was a PV with a Marshall cab, but I could be wrong. So now here's the crazy part about this album. The guitars in this album are so tight, and I think that's because they had to record them twice. All the songs were first played in drop D flat, but Matt's guitar was not holding his pitch correctly. And when the producer Jason figured this out, he felt terrible because they had gotten through all 12 tracks of guitar recording. So that meant they had to shift a half step up and then re-record all the tracks all over again. But I think that really lends to the really tight sound of the album. But man, would that be a brutal process to do. If you've ever been in like a studio setting and recorded guitars or been there while your guitarist was recording guitars, it takes a fucking long time. But what it did is give this record a massive locked-in sound that was the sound that really defined Ascendancy. I think what's great about this album is there's a lot of thrash influence and a lot of death metal influence, but it sounds modern. Maybe not as much today because it's so much sounding from that era, but at the time it must have been massive. All this careful crafting marked a real step up for the band, arriving at the perfect moment to make a big splash, and to finally introduce themselves to the world with an album that couldn't be ignored. Instead of learning Trivium songs riff for riff and trying to match their playing, I thought it'd be fun to try and take all that energy, their sound, and their vibe from the era, and try and create a demo track that sounds like a knockoff Trivium Ascendancy song. So I'm going to sit down and write some riffs that feel like a demo for what could have been on Ascendancy. Real quick, if you're enjoying this deep dive into Trivium and you want to support me, please go check out my Patreon and my YouTube membership. On both, you get early access to videos, behind the scenes stuff, Q&As, and you'll even get discounts on the guitar tones that I create. And if you like the demo in this video and you want to play along with it, I'm going to be offering the tabs and the drum and bass midis for you guys to play along at home. So if you enjoy what I do and you support me, please go check those out. I have one tier that's 99 cents and one tier that's $4.99. And I also want to give a really quick shout out to ToneDeck. If you want some of the best tone-matched album IRs in the game, please go check them out and use my discounts down below. Alright, so now let's dive into the demo and see how it came out. So for this one, I figured I'd use my ESP LTD EC256. Kind of match the same vibes that Matt had on the album. And then I'm using the Trivium amp knob because I think that's an awesome sounding plugin. And then for the drums, I'll be using MDL drums, and then I'm using Jin bass because I love that sound too. So I figured we just write like a really nice Trivium sounding riff, then like a big chorus, and then kind of like a breakdown with some harmony, and then back to the chorus and call it a day. I like that. Okay, that's it. Oh, look at that. It's easy. Cool. I'll fuck around with that, but I like that. Then we need some kind of chorus. I know he likes to use like big ass chords. I want to get like a nice like chugging like chorus thing. Well, that could work. Maybe that'll be like the main riff. I think that'll work as like a main riff, maybe? Yeah, it's like a gunshot in the head of trepidation pit, I feel. Nah, that sounds like too punk rock. I would do like something like. Ooh, okay, that works. It was nice and easy. Yeah, easy. So now that's the full demo. I'm going to put it all together. I want to put all that up on Patreon, and that'll be available for you guys to play along with. Ascendancy dropped on March 15th, 2005, and within a year it went gold in the UK and even charted at number 79 on their Billboard. In America, it landed at number 151 on the US Billboard 200, which I think is really impressive for a band that hadn't really been heard before in America. And then all of a sudden they're on the mainstream charts. The songs from this album have been played live 5,289 times in total, 2,500 more than any other Trivium record. Pull Harder is their most performed song at 1,200 live performances, followed by Gunshot at 872, and Like Light to the Flies at 832. And it's safe to say that this is a really important album for them. It gave them a lot of attention fast, and fueled an ego that their label wanted them to play up. And all that hype and attention in the UK is what led Matt to declare the band as the next Metallica. A band he admired and wanted to emulate, aiming for stadium-level successes. They had already made a huge impact in the UK, and he felt like they could conquer the rest of the world. That didn't happen, and they faced criticism and even mocking from bands that they looked up to. But that doesn't diminish how important this record is. Ascendancy feels like Trivium's true debut because how big of a splash it made. Ember to Inferno was on a smaller label with limited reach. And while it did chart in the UK and Australia, it didn't really make a splash anywhere else. With Roadrunner's backing, the addition of Corey, and the lineup finally solidified, Trivium would fully realize their vision and create music that would ultimately define their career. For me, this album parallels Metallica's Ride the Lightning. It's the second album, but it's the one that locks in the band's sound for the future, while also creating a lasting legacy. Both bands had key lineup changes that shaped their evolution positively. And the biggest reason that Ascendancy feels like their real debut, it was a major breakout. Unlike Kill 'Em All, which built Metallica a big underground following, Ember to Inferno barely made a dent in America. Ascendancy hit the charts immediately and became a touchstone moment for the band, even getting them enough attention to end up on a tour with Ozzy. Sure, some riffs may sound generic now, but that's because they helped build the blueprint that would become the metalcore scene. This is one of the records that defined the sound, and everyone followed after. Even though Trivium didn't reach the stratosphere that Matt had imagined, they built a well-respected discography off this album. If you've never checked them out, I think you should start here. The biggest songs on this album are worth it. And yes, they do the screams and the clean choruses, which I know a lot of older metalheads hate, but I think they do it really tastefully here. It's not like those late 2000s bands that started a little bit cringy with it. Their music is really rooted in thrash, and I think a lot of older fans can appreciate that. I wouldn't call Trivium one of my all-time favorite bands. They'd be like an honorable mention on my list, but Ascendancy has really influenced the way I write music. I love that it nails that aggressive, melodic tone that I'm always searching for. The riffs, the harmonies, the energy, it's what keeps bringing me back to this album. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I think you should. Let me know what you think of this album down below. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, I want you to check out this one right here. It's on Lamb of God's Ashes of the Wake. Last year, it celebrated its 20th anniversary, and I did a whole breakdown video on that album and what I think makes it special. So if you enjoyed this video, I think you'll enjoy that one. Again, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Try to hit 3,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and everyone helps. I'll see you in the next video. Stay metal. Peace.